What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your Pixel hybrid bar pack. So as you can see, the lights come in this heavy duty road case to protect your lights from gig to gig, and inside of the case you get 6 of the Pixel hybrid bar lights. Each light also comes with a power cable to charge the light and a wireless remote to function the light, and there's also a power cable to power the case for charging. Now it's very easy to transport this case because of the wheels on the bottom, and 2 of these wheels have these wheel locks, so when you're ready to take the lights out for your gig, you can press these locks down and the case will stay in place. And if you do need to pick up the case, there's 2 handles on each side so you and another person can pick it up. To keep the case closed, all you have to do is bring down the lid. And to keep the case closed, you're gonna wanna use these butterfly locks here. So to do that, you're gonna take each lock and spin it to the left, and this is gonna fully extend the lock here. Then you're just gonna line it up to this latch here, then twist the lock to the right, and this will keep the case closed, but if you do want some extra security, you can run a padlock through these holes here on each side. Another great thing about this case is you can stack another one right on top thanks to these grooves here. You'll just want to lock the wheels of the case going on top so that it doesn't fly off when you're transporting both of your cases at once. So now to charge the lights inside of the pack, it's really easy to do. All you're gonna need is the included power cables for each light and the power cable that plugs into the case. So you'll notice these power outlets here on the side of the case, and this is where you're gonna plug in each light. So you're gonna take your power cable and plug the blue end into the power in socket of each light, then plug the other end into each outlet here on the side of the case. On the outside of the case, you'll notice this IEC socket, and this is where we're gonna plug in our main power cable to charge our pack. So I'm gonna take the IEC end of my cable, plug it into the socket here, then I'm gonna plug the other end into a power source or a wall outlet. And now to get my lights to charge, I'm just gonna flip this switch here to the on position. If the lights are completely dead, they usually take about 6 hours to fully charge. And to check the battery life on each light, you can always turn them on and check the battery life indicator on the top. We also recommend leaving the case open while they're charging so that the lights have proper ventilation. So now let's talk about how to position the lights in your Pixel hybrid bar pack. And to do this, I'm just gonna use one of the lights in the pack, but keep in mind this applies to all 6 of the lights. So let me take one out right now to show you how that works. So if we take a look at the light here, you'll see these feet on each side so that we can angle the light into different positions, whether we have it mounted onto our truss or if we're placing it on the floor for wall washing. So if you're looking to adjust the angle for your light, you're gonna go to each foot of your light and look for these knobs here on each side. You're gonna want to loosen them up, and then from here you'll be able to adjust the position of the foot. And once you have the angle set, you can tighten the knobs back up to lock it in place. So we have a few different ways we can set up our light on the floor. Like I mentioned, we can use it for wall washing, and there's a couple of ways we can do that. So we can place it up straight, just like this, and have the light placed completely flush against the wall. And another method we could use for wall washing is to place it a few inches away from the wall, and then we can use the feet on the bottom of the light to angle it so that the light hits the wall the way we want it to. And you can also use these same methods to light up your DJ facade. Like I mentioned, we can also mount our light onto a truss, and to do that we're gonna need 2 lighting clamps like these here, which are our very own LC70 clamps. So to set these up to our light, we're gonna start by removing the wing nut here. Once that's off, we can unscrew the bolt here on the bottom. Next, we can line up the hole here on our lighting clamp to these holes here on each foot, just like this. Then we're gonna take the bolt again and run it through both of these holes. Then we can tighten the bolt so that it comes through both of these holes. And now our clamp is screwed onto the foot, but we can take our wing nut here and screw it back onto the bolt for extra security. Then we're gonna follow the same exact steps to set up our second clamp to the second foot. Now that our clamps are attached to the light, we can now mount it to our truss. And to do that, we're gonna loosen these butterfly screws here on each clamp so that there's enough room for the clamp to fit onto our truss. And now from here, we can take our light and line the clamps up to an open spot on our truss. And once it's all lined up, we're gonna tighten these butterfly screws to secure the light onto the truss. Don't forget, we can still angle our light even after it's mounted by using the knobs on each side of the foot. From there, we can angle the light however we want and then tighten these knobs once we have it angled. So now to show you how these lights work, I'm gonna take out one of these lights and go over all of the different controls, buttons, and functions. And keep in mind, this applies to every light in the pack. So let's take out one of these lights right now and dive in. On the back, we have the on and off switch to turn our light on and off. So I'll go ahead and turn it on now. Next to that, we have the controls for the light. So we have the menu button to set our lights into the different modes. We have the up and down buttons to adjust the different settings for each mode. And then we have the enter button to save our changes. And after we press the enter button, it will also automatically remember this setting. So if we turn the light off and back on, it's gonna go to that last mode that we saved. So let's go through the different modes right now, starting with the DMX address mode. This allows us to set up the DMX address for the light so we can use it with our DMX controller. From here, we can use the up and down buttons to change the DMX address. So if I press up, I can switch it from A001 to A002, and so on and so forth. Next, we have the DMX channel mode, which allows us to set how much control we have over our light when we use a DMX controller. And there's various degrees of controls with each DMX channel, but we're gonna be going over that later on. So in this mode, I'm gonna press enter to switch the DMX channel mode. Then I can use the up and down buttons to switch between 5 channel, 14 channel, and 75 channel. And once I pick which one I want to use, I can press enter to save the change. Next, we have the fail mode. And this will actually determine how the light will behave when it loses communication with your wireless DMX controller or remote. So while we're in the fail mode, we can press enter, and we have 2 different options. So the first option we have is hold. This means that it's going to hold the current setting that it was last set to. So say it was set to a red LED and we lose the communication, the light will still stay on that red mode, or we can set it to off so that the light will black out as soon as it loses that communication. Next, we have the auto mode where we can switch the light into different preset shows. So this is auto 1, which goes through a series of different motions. We can then use the up and down buttons to cycle between different preset shows. Then we can press enter to adjust the speed for the mode. So if I go down, then that will make it go slower. And the higher I go, the faster the show will go. And then we can press enter again, which will bring us back to the auto mode. Next, we have the fade mode where the light will fade between each color, and we can use the up and down buttons to cycle between the different fade modes. And if we press enter, we can adjust the speed of the fade and use the up and down buttons to do that. Next, we have the strobe mode where we can cycle between different strobe effects. We can then press enter to adjust the speed of the strobe and use the up and down buttons to adjust that speed, and press enter again to get back to strobe mode. Next, we have the sound mode where we can cycle between 4 different sound effects. And then we can press enter in this mode to switch the sensitivity of the microphone, which will change how the light interacts with the sound being picked up. So the higher I go in this setting, the more sensitive the mic will be. Next, we have the manual mode, which will allow us to make a custom color for the light. So we can press enter in this mode to cycle between the different LEDs. So for example, when you press enter once, you can then adjust the red LED. If you press it again, you can adjust the green LED. If you press it again after that, you can adjust the blue LED. After blue, you can press enter again to adjust the white strobe dimmer. And then you can press enter again to adjust the warm white dimmer. With each dimmer, you can use the up and down buttons to adjust how much of each LED you want present. So for example, I'm in the red dimmer right now, and I'm using the up button so that there's more of the red LEDs present. Then I can press enter to adjust the green LED, and now there's more green present. And then I can do the same thing for the blue LED, the white strobe dimmer, and the warm white dimmer. Next, we have the 2.4 gigahertz mode. This allows us to turn on or turn off the wireless DMX function. If we're trying to get our wireless DMX controller set up to the light and it's not working, you would want to go to this menu, press enter, and then you can use the up or down button to adjust it to be on or off. So if your DMX controller isn't working, this might be because this was accidentally turned off. So you can use either the up or down button to turn it back on, and now you should be able to finish setting up your DMX controller. Next, we have the IRCL mode, which allows us to turn on or turn off the function of our wireless remote with the light. So similar thing, if your wireless remote isn't working with your light, you can press enter in this mode, use the up or down button to turn it from off to on or vice versa, and then press enter again to save that change. Next, we have the LED mode to turn off or turn on the LED display on the back of our light. And then we have the version mode, which will tell us the firmware version of our light. So that's each mode for the light, but there's still some more features. For example, there is the DMX in and the DMX out on the side of the light. This allows us to daisy chain a series of lights by using DMX cables. So for example, if this is my master light right here, I can plug one end of my DMX cable into the DMX out on the first light. Then I would plug the other end into the DMX in on the next light, and so on and so forth down the chain. On the other side, we also have the power in and the power out sockets to electrically daisy chain each light so that they share some power. You can also use the power in socket with the included power cable to charge your light. You'll always be able to tell how much battery life your light has by looking at the battery level here on top of the light. And next to that, we have the wireless DMX group light. This allows us to set our lights to different wireless DMX groups, which are color coded. So if we press this button, you'll see that we can cycle between different colors of red, green, yellow, blue, purple, cyan, and white. So next, let's talk about how to set up DMX wired and wireless with the Pixel Hybrid bar pack. And to do this, I'm just gonna use 2 of the lights from the pack, but if you wanna use all 6, you're just gonna follow these same exact steps. So let me take 2 of these lights out right now to show you how that works. So the cool thing about this light is that it has a wireless DMX feature, so we can set it up to a wireless DMX controller. So to explain how that works, we're gonna actually look at the top of our light, and we're gonna look for this button that says wireless DMX group. There's also this control on our wireless DMX controller, so we have to set them to the same wireless DMX group in order for them to communicate together. The wireless DMX groups are color-coded, so it makes it very easy to pair our light with our DMX controller. So for example, I can press the wireless DMX group button here to cycle between the different groups. So they're color-coded like I mentioned, so we can cycle between the group of red, green, yellow, blue, purple, cyan, or white. So to link the light to my DMX controller, I'm going to turn on my DMX controller, and I'm also going to turn on the wireless DMX feature on the controller. Now from here, I can choose which wireless DMX group I want to use for my light and my controller. So again, I can press the wireless DMX group button here on my light. And for today, I'm gonna choose to set our lights and controller to blue. So I can do that on my light first, and then I can go to my DMX controller and look for the wireless DMX group button and press it until it's set to the blue group. Okay, so after I've set them both to blue, you'll see that they're starting to communicate, and you can tell because the light is flashing green and the controller is flashing red. After we've set them to the same wireless DMX group, we're gonna want to go to our light and set up a DMX channel and a DMX address. So first we can set up the DMX address by pressing the menu button until we get to the A001 display. And then I'm actually gonna use A001 as my DMX address. So I'm gonna press enter to make sure that's saved. Then I'm gonna press menu to get to the DMX channel mode. This allows us to set how much control we have over our light when we're using our controller. And we have 3 different options to choose from. So we have a 5-channel mode, a 14-channel mode, and a 75-channel mode. So if we want the most basic control, we can use the 5-channel mode. If we want a medium or intermediate control, we can use the 14-channel mode. And then we can use the 75-channel mode for a more advanced setup. If you take a look at the included DMX guide, you can see how much control you have over your light with each DMX channel mode. For today, we're gonna set it to the 14-channel mode by using the up and down buttons until it says 14 channel, and then we're gonna press enter again. So after we have that all set up, we can go back to our DMX controller here, and we're gonna want to activate scanner 1. And now we're all set to use our controller with our light. So again, we can refer to our DMX guide to see what each fader does for our light. So fader 1 acts as our master dimmer, so I'm going to raise that all the way up so that once we set up the other faders, we can see some light coming through. Fader 2 acts as our warm white dimmer, so the more we raise that, the more of that light you see. Then fader 3 activates the strobe for the white dimmer, so the more I raise that, the more you see the warm white start to strobe. Now when we set each fader to a different position, this also sets the value for each fader. So this is good to know for the next fader here, which is fader 4, and each value on this fader activates a different mode. So for example, if I set fader 4 between the values of 20 to 24, this activates the zigzag mode that you see right here. Again, you can see which value activates which mode by looking at the DMX guide. Next, we have fader 5 to control the speed for each of these modes. So again, I'm on the zigzag mode right now, and if I raise fader 5 all the way up, you'll see that it goes to max speed in this mode, and then I can lower it to the middle, and now it's a bit slower. Next, we have fader 6, which is the white light dimmer. So again, we're gonna wanna make sure that fader 1 is raised all the way up, and then we can raise fader 6, and then you'll see the white light start to come. Next, we have fader 7 to control the strobe for the white light. So if I raise it up, then you'll see that light start to strobe. And just like we had for the warm white dimmer, we have fader 8 to set our white light to different modes. And just like before, depending on where we set this fader, it will activate a different mode. So for example, if I set this anywhere from 40 to 44, this activates the bounce effect for the white light dimmer. What's also really cool is that you can use the warm light and the white light together while they're set to different modes. So for example, we have the white light going through its own mode now. Then at the same time, I can set up the warm light here and set it to its own mode. And now, as you can see, I have both going at the same time. Jumping on the next page of my DMX controller to fader 9, this affects the speed of the white light effect. So the more I raise fader 9, the faster the effect for the white light will go. Now moving on to fader 10, this acts as the RGB dimmer. So if we wanted to use any colored lights, we can raise this fader up. Fader 11 acts as the strobe for the RGB dimmer, but first we can go to fader 12 to set a color. And the colors are determined by the value you set this fader to. So for example, I'm going to set this to the green color using values 45 to 79. So I'm gonna raise it up. Now we have the green color. And then going back to fader 11 to set the strobe, and the higher we raise it, the faster the strobe will go. So this is about medium strobe, and then we raise it up more for a faster strobe. We have fader 13 to activate colored effects, and again, it's determined by the value we set this fader to. So for example, I'm going to set this to anywhere from 50 to 54. This activates a color chase, and then we can use fader 14 to adjust the speed. So the higher we set this, the faster this effect will go. So that's what all the faders do for the 14 channel mode. And again, it's gonna be different if you set it to 5 channel or 75 channel, but you can refer to the DMX guide for what each fader will do in those different DMX channel modes.
So for this demo, we just set up one of our lights to our DMX controller, but keep in mind if you wanted to add more lights in your wireless chain, all you're gonna do is activate your second, third, or however many lights that you want. Set them all to the same wireless DMX group as your first light and your controller, and then you'll be good to go. You also have the option to set up your DMX controller to your lights with DMX cables in case your wireless setup doesn't work. So to do that, I have my DMX cable here. I'm going to take the male end and plug it into the DMX out on my controller. Then I'm going to plug the other end into the DMX in on my light here. In this setup, I still want to make sure to set up a DMX address to communicate with my mixer and a DMX channel so I know how much control I have with my controller. So I just turned off the wireless DMX feature on my controller to test out our wired connection here. So if I raise fader 2, for example, with fader 1, you'll start to see the light coming through. And to set up more lights in your chain, all you're gonna do is take another DMX cable and plug it into the DMX out of your first light, then plug it into the DMX in on the second light, and repeat this process all the way down for however many lights that you wanna set up. And remember to set each light to the same DMX address and the same DMX channel.
So next I want to show you guys how to use the master slave function with these lights, and for this I'm just going to use 2 of the lights from the pack, but keep in mind if you want to use all 6, you're just going to follow the same exact steps. So let me take 2 of these lights out right now to show you how that works.
So let's say we want to have control over multiple lights, but we don't want to use a DMX controller. We can use the master slave function to do this instead. So for this setup, I want to take my lights here and I want to choose which one I want to use as my main light. So for today, I'm going to go with this light right here as my main light and this light right here as my second light. So just like we did for the wireless DMX setup, we're gonna be using the wireless DMX grouping to get these lights to communicate together. So now they're set up to different wireless DMX group, so I'll want to set them to the same group. So I'm gonna use the blue group for today, just like we have on our first light here. So I'm gonna go to my second light and press the button until it hits blue. And remember when we turn on our lights that the first mode that it's set to is the DMX address mode. So now they're both set to the blue group, but they're not doing anything right now. And this is just because we have the lights set to the default mode, which is the DMX address mode. If I go to my master light right here and I switch it to a different mode, so say one of the auto modes, for example, you'll then see that the master light is flashing red while the slave light is flashing green, letting us know they're connected, and now they're doing the exact same thing. And any changes that we make to the master light will also follow the slave light. So if we went to a different mode, for example, the slave light starts to follow the master light. And if I want to make any more changes for my string of lights, I can go to the master light and switch it to any mode or color, or I can even use the included wireless remote. If you are going to use the wireless remote to make your changes, we actually recommend that you do an additional step. So what we're going to want to do is turn off the IRCL on all of our slave lights so that the master light is the only one that can interact with our remote. The reason why we include this step is so that when we have our remote pointing to our string of lights, it doesn't accidentally switch one of the slave lights, which will set everything else out of sync. So again, we're going to go to our slave lights here and press the menu button until we get to the IRCL menu. Then we're going to press enter to adjust this setting and use the up or down button to set this to off. And then we'll press enter again to save that change. So now if I take my remote and point it towards my master light to make any changes, you'll see that the slave light will follow. And because we turned off the IRCL for our slave lights, I can take my remote and point it at my slave light and nothing happens, which is good because this way it won't fall out of sync with my master light or any other light in our chain. Another way we can set up the master slave function is by using the DMX out on our master light to plug into the DMX in on our slave light. So to make that connection, I'm going to take my DMX cable and plug the male end into the DMX out on my master light, then plug the other end into the DMX in on my slave light. So this way we don't need the DMX channel grouping to link our lights together. So now I can go to my master light here and make any adjustments or changes, and then the slave light will follow.
So another way we can control these lights aside from using the master slave function or DMX is with the included remotes for each light. And to show you how to do that, I'm just going to take out one of the lights and the remote, but remember this will apply to every other remote and light that comes included with the pack. So I'll take out one of the lights and remotes and let's dive in.
So now that we know how our light works, let's go ahead and take a look at the wireless remote to see how it can interact with our light. So on top here we have an on and off button, and this is solely for the LEDs inside of the light, so it doesn't turn the light off altogether, but it will control the LEDs. So if you need to turn off the lights in a pinch, you can press the off button here, and whenever you want to turn them back on, just press the on button. Next, we can adjust the brightness for our lights using the brightness down or the brightness up button. So if we want to dim them down, we can just press the brightness down. And if we want to brighten it up, we just press brighten up. Over here, we have the different presets to set our lights to different modes. So we have a strobe mode, an auto mode, a fade mode, a pulse mode, and a static mode. Of course, there's different settings for each of these modes, and to adjust them, you can use the mode up or mode down button here. The only exception to this is for the static mode button. So for example, if we press static mode, it sets our light to the static color as we know, but if we ever wanted to change that color, we're actually gonna want to use these color wheel buttons here. So if I press up from green, we go to blue, and then we can use either the up or down button to cycle between the different static colors. You can also adjust the speed for each mode by using the speed up and speed down buttons. So for example, I'm in this auto mode right now, and if I wanted to go any faster, I can press speed up. And if I want to slow it down, I can press speed down. Next to the speed buttons, I have a button to adjust the DMX address and the DMX channel, so that this way I can easily change them without going to the panel on the back of the light whenever I'm using my DMX controller. So for example, if I wanted to change the DMX address, I can press the DMX address button and then use the mode down or the mode up buttons to switch between the different DMX addresses. And the same thing goes for the DMX channel. Below that, we have the 4 different sound modes for the light. So I can press the sound mode 1 button for sound mode 1, and then sound mode 2, sound mode 3, and sound mode 4. With the remote, we can also adjust the sensitivity of the built-in mic, which will change how the light interacts with the sound by using the sensitivity down or the sensitivity up buttons. So next we have this multicolor button here, which sets our light to a cool rainbow effect. And if we want to change the cycle of this rainbow effect, we can use the color wheel up and down buttons here. So you can see as I'm using those buttons, the cycle of the rainbow starts to change. We also have 4 single colors here of red, green, blue, or purple. And again, we can use the color wheel up and down buttons here to change the shade. So for example, in this purple color here, if I press down, then you can see that purple becoming lighter, and then I can raise it up to make it more of that concentrated purple. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if you're trying to use your remote with your light and nothing is happening, you'll want to check the IRCL setting. So to do that, you're gonna press the menu button on your light until you get to the IRCL display, press enter, and use the up or down buttons to switch it from off to on in case it's off. And then from there, you should be able to use your remote freely.
So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your Pixel Hybrid bar pack. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.